When I started at that training provider, I was the shyest person you would ever have met. I used to sit next to the phone, the trainer's phone. You'll know who this is, I'll tell you. And he was trying to get me to answer it to build my confidence, and I hated it. I used to go red, even on the phone. So the fact that that training provider and the people there that taught me got me to pretty much where I am today, being able to stand up in front of people.
I'm waiting outside his door for feedback, and he opened the door and I said, "Can you explain why I've had an F?" He went, "No," and just shut the door. And how that made me feel has always stuck with me.
Because I think it's like you say, a lot of the time, it's very much about catering to individual needs, and that's the way that education has gone now, hasn't it? It's all about, years ago, it was everyone has the same thing. Tough luck, if you don't fit the mould, like your experience, you forget it. But now it's very much about being inclusive and adaptable and making sure that, learners succeed and they can do what they need to do and want to do.
Hello, and welcome to the Learning Collab. This is a podcast brought to you by Panda Education and Training. I'm Ros Prothero, Training Director at Panda. We're thrilled to be bringing you this podcast, which explores a range of topics in post-16 education to educate and inspire others like us working in the industry.
Hi, I'm Rachel Arnold, Operations Director at Panda. Each episode we'll be collaborating with practitioners and industry experts from post-16 education to explore current themes and topics and to provide tips and advice.
Hi, and I'm Reardon-James, part of the team at Panda. We want to highlight the good practice that is taking place and share success stories in work-based learning, apprenticeships, vocational education and adult learning.
So in today's episode, we explore the importance of professional development and lifelong learning and collaboration within that. We'll be chatting with our very own Anne Reardon-James about why and how she won both the Inspired Tutor of the Year 2023 award and also more recently the Work-Based Learning Practitioner of the Year 2024. But first, a little introduction to us and why we're passionate about vocational education and why we're doing this podcast.
We've all got different stories about why we're passionate about what we do. And for those who don't know what we do, we train other trainers, we train assessors who work in mainly post-16 education. So whether it's in a school, training provider, further education, adult education, or a workplace, we train people who train others. So Ross, let's hear from you first. Let's hear about your story, about what's made you passionate about what we do, about vocational education.
Okie dokie. So cast your minds back to the last century. It really is the last century. So in the 90s, I left school, I went to university, and my first brush with education after school was going to uni and going to art college. And I thought, well, this is great because I had some freedom, but not much teaching actually took place. Art education at the time in the 90s was very much express yourself. Just go into a room, get some paintbrushes and express yourself. And they didn't actually teach us much. So I sort of came out of that 3 years later thinking, I'm not sure what I learned. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but maybe for different reasons. But after that, I was trying to make it as an artist, very different to what I do now, right? And for a few years, trying to be an artist, not having much luck. So I went to the job centre and they suggested I went to a training provider in Cardiff. And I thought, well, I don't really want to do that. But they put me on a computer course. So completely different from what I'd always dreamt of doing. So art, painting, drawing. I ended up, basically learning about computers. Fast forward 25 years, I stayed at that training provider.
Became employed,
I wasn't there for 25 years just learning. No, I wasn't that bad. I did really well, actually. And so well, they gave me a job. That's where I met you, Rachel, because you worked there.
Yeah.
And I was working there for 17 years. You were working there for
15.
So we were there for a long time. And the reason I think I'm passionate about adult learning is everything I learnt in that job. So I was a tutor in IT. I actually taught, and if you'd said that to me, like, when I was leaving uni, I would have thought you were mad. But I just loved teaching others. And even if it wasn't art, it was still something that I was quite passionate about, but I grew passionate about that. And then, as I say, fast forward 25 years, I was employed. I worked my way up to be with you in the senior management team. But it was all about teaching others to teach our learners, the post-16 learners, because they are different to what it's like in school, what it's like in universities, training providers and work-based and vocational training. It is different. And everybody's so different. The learners that you get at training providers, at post-16 colleges, I'll let you two fill in the gaps on where you did your learning. But for me, it was at a training provider. I didn't learn much from university. It was all at that training provider and getting in the mix with people from all different walks of life and experiences, learning that every single learner was different and we had to adapt. And I just love that thing of no 2 days are the same and you've got to adapt to that learner. I love that.
Yeah. And
So,
it's really your creativity from your art really helps you in your teaching as well, isn't it?
yeah, I think the creativity side does help. Yeah, just do that on the side now. So if anybody wants a portrait or a pet portrait, you know where to come. So yeah, I mean, really, and the other aspect of that I just wanted to highlight. When I started at that training provider, I was the shyest person you would ever have met. I used to sit next to the phone, the trainer's phone. You'll know who this is. I'll tell you. And he was trying to get me to answer it to build my confidence. And I hated it. I used to go red, even on the phone. So the fact that that training provider and the people there that taught me got me to pretty much where I am today, being able to stand up in front of people. I did my PGCE. I did all the different qualifications, the MBQs, CLATE, all of these different qualifications that made me a really confident person. And I'm just really glad that I went to the job centre that day and they referred me, because if they hadn't, I wouldn't be in it.
Yeah, totes and both.
I know, it's a trudge. And I'd be get to somewhere painting pets.
It was meant to be, I think.
That's not what I intended my life to do, but I'm really glad it did. So that's me, Rachel.
Similar to you, well, in school, I was all right in school. I wouldn't say particularly enjoyed it, but I was all right. Went to university because that's what you did. You did your A levels and you went to university. I had an awful experience. Actually, in my A levels, I basically taught myself because, again, I didn't learn in the way that my teachers wanted to teach me. I didn't know that then. I know that now. Went to university, hated my first year at Swansea, so I came back and I went to a local university. But even when I was there, it was all about basically self-learning, and I didn't like the way I was lectured. Didn't teach me anything. There was no teaching skills actually in university. I know things have changed now because it was obviously 30 years ago. But the thing that sticks in my mind most was submitting an assignment in my counselling psychology module and having an F. I'm waiting, and I'd never had an F before. I'm waiting outside his door for feedback, and he opened the door and I said, "Can you explain why I've had an F?" He went, "No," and just shut the door. And how that made me feel has always stuck with me. The way that university taught has always stuck with me. And after that, I went to work in a large plumbing centre. And I was on a management development programme, which was essentially an apprenticeship. And I loved the way they combined sort of theory about management along with the practical side then of learning how to be a manager. Although I was learning about boilers and soil pipe, none of which I can remember now. I much preferred that way of learning. And one of the trainers said to me, she said, "Have you ever thought about becoming a trainer?" And I hadn't. That same day, the regional manager said to me, "You'll never get anywhere in this company because you're a woman." So I went home, opened the jobs paper with her voice in my mind about becoming a trainer and me needing to get a new job. I saw a job advertised for an assessor in a work-based learning provider. I went along, had my interview and was employed and absolutely loved it. I loved going out, meeting learners on a one-to-one basis, supporting them. We had level 1 learners all the way up to level 4. I taught a range of subjects because I'd worked in Plum Centre. I could do warehousing because I used to be able to drive a forklift truck. Yes, my licence is expired now. But as an assessor then, there was ways that I learnt how I didn't want to do things. So when I then went on and progressed in my career and became a manager of assessors, I sort of tried to manage them how I would have liked to have been managed. And from that then, I progressed again up the ladder and became a quality director. which is where I met you, and you were my head of staff learning development, because we saw the route to quality was through having well-trained staff who had the resources to be able to carry out their jobs, but to know how to plan properly, to know how to give good feedback, to know how to teach, to know how to assess. And when we were at the large training provider, that's what our mission was.
Yeah.
But we couldn't find anyone to do it well. And that's why we thought,
Did it ourselves?
did it ourselves. So what about you, Anne? What's your story? Slightly different to us, because you obviously haven't known us for 20 years.
Yeah, I'm not 20 years. 3 years now.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, so it's bad.
Yeah.
8 years, planned to go. 8 years. Yeah, I suppose my story's similar in that I didn't really start off with teaching and assessing and training. That wasn't my initial thoughts. Although I do have a recollection of when I was a child, I think, in the back garden with a board. So maybe it was always there. But yeah, it was very much, I kind of fell into it. I suppose I did go the traditional route actually at the start. I did go to A-levels, university. Psychology was my first degree, so behavioural sciences, and I'm really interested in all that. And I did go off to do some work with people with eating disorders. I worked in hospitals, but I felt like it was too much for me. I think I like being around people, but I think for me personally, I don't want to be counselling people as such, but that teaching role really hit the spot. I kind of fell into it when I took some time out from work and I had my son when I was a baby. And I started a cottage industry working in crafts arts. So that was my hobby. And I went to a class, I think it was in a library or community centre, and someone was teaching. And I thought, I can do this. This looks like a craft. Oh yeah, I'll go do some arts and crafts. And then from then, I suppose I started with a teaching college. I went to do my teaching qualification that way. And then that kind of progressed from one to another. I suppose I just first found my way. And worked in the community centres or community colleges, taught with the universities, the prison, probation service. So obviously work-based learning for a number of years as well. So lots of different experiences.
Fabulous. Lots of things to bring you to where you are now.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I think it's obvious. I mean, it's obvious. I think we're all passionate about professional learning and development, especially you, Anne. In the conversations we've had, you're so passionate about making sure that everybody is included, that no learner is left behind. And that's really important. But why do you think just generally professional development for professionals like us is important? Lifelong learning, why is that so important?
For very much the reasons you were saying, I suppose, earlier, your experiences. I think that's really common, isn't it? A lot of people have those experiences. And a lot of the time, especially I think with work-based learning in particular, I mean, FE sector is always thought of as that, I hate that term, but is a Cinderella sector.
Yeah.
It often gets forgotten, and there's even less for work-based learning assessing. Yeah. And that's ridiculous because people often go into it from maybe they worked in trades or professions in most of their careers and they started teaching and assessing maybe later on as a second career, third career. And I'm just in awe and inspiring. It just inspires me to see people being like a beginner again and going, down in tools as a profession. Maybe they work like you said, in plumber or in trades or scaffolding and being a learner again and starting that journey off and learning how to teach and assess and train. It's just amazing.
It's good, isn't it? I think we all changed tack, didn't we? We started off with clear ideas, perhaps, of where we would end up in life, and then we completely changed that and ended up here. But because of people helping us to see how important that is. So, Anne, Inspired Tutor of the Year Award 2023. I do have notes here. Apprenticeship Awards, Practitioner of the Year Award in 2024. We're sort of using you as our first collaborator on this podcast because in these podcasts, we do want to collaborate with people equally as passionate about learning and predominantly post-16, vocational, work-based learning. Why do you think collab? Okay, so our name is the Learning Collab. Why do you think collaboration is important? Why don't we just sit here every week and natter? Why is it important to bring other people in? I think I've just answered that myself.
And the clues in the punchline. Exactly. It's like collaboration, isn't it? It's definitely so important. I've always found that in my career as well. There's so much better experience for the teachers, for the learners. Everyone works together. I think the more the merrier. Definitely with work-based learning and education. And I suppose a lot of it's to do with it, that kind of getting across that passion and interest. And I mean, I'm a course holic myself. I'm always doing it. I'm always doing a course. Yes.
What's your latest course, Anne?
Yeah.
My latest course. So I do, for fun, I do economics on a Saturday morning.
Sorry, for fun.
For fun, okay, cool.
And you're also working through your doctorate as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah. So I'm doing my doctorate in education. So I would really look into a previous role I had was to do with, I was leading projects with essential skills. And it was not tied in, I suppose, that project then, that doctorate research I did in different workplaces about essential skills at the qualifications, like how valid are they? How are they good? Do they fit for purpose still? Because I think it's like you say, a lot of the time, it's very much about catering to individual needs. And that's the way education has gone now, hasn't it? It's all about, years ago, was everyone has the same thing. Tough luck. If you don't fit the mold, like your experience, you forget it. But now it's very much about being inclusive and adaptable and making sure that, learners succeed and they can do what they need to do and want to do.
I think there's a future podcast there, and discussing your doctorate, essential skills.
Might well be.
And maybe the importance of inclusivity.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Got a feeling that might be on the list.
Yes, I think so.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But really, we just want to talk about all the things that we think are going to be helpful to other people like us in the sector and inspire, hopefully. So we'll bring in people to help us with that. But first up is you, Anne. And go on, let's no, we don't want you to be modest here. But why do you think you have won those awards, do you think? What makes you Practitioner of the Year? What is it?
There's a lot of things, I suppose, really, isn't it? I mean, there were a lot of good people in the categories. I was up against some stiff competition. And it was amazing. People got shortlisted as well from the whole of Wales, national down to final three. It's great. But I think a lot of it's testament to the work that we do together. We're a team, aren't we? I don't work on my own in isolation. I go actually learn from each other.
Well, I would love to say that it's because of us that you got that award, but you very certainly got that, because you do an amazing job. And I think your passion shines through.
Yeah, and I think as well, and I remember when we were writing the application for you, the number of things that you do outside of your job. So it's not just a job for you, it is a passion, it is lifelong learning, and you're always doing something new, like you edit the literacy journal.
Yes, the RAPAL.
Yeah.
Yes, research and practice and adult literacy. Yes, so I suppose, like you say, it's collaboration again, isn't it? I do like being part of different networks, different organisations, getting out there, speaking to people. The only good side for me after the pandemic was that I found a lot of online groups. I'm now talking with educators maybe in the north of England, which wouldn't have happened if there hadn't been the pandemic, because sometimes you kind of narrow down and just speak to people that are near to you. But then you get those different perspectives, different ideas from speaking to people outside your little bubble.
Yeah.
I think.
Sure. Yeah. Excellent. And I would say, again, in your iSpace, say your personal life as well, you also supported Ukrainian learners in speaking English, and you put up some Ukrainian lovely people in your house as well, which is excellent. And it's all about that giving something back as well, isn't it, for you, Anne, I think?
Yeah, definitely. Again, that's back to learning as well. I learned so much about, living with different people, different cultures, learning about different experiences. I think it feels like it enriches you as a person, and then you can pass it on to other people as well.
I was thinking it's like when Phoebe says you can't do anything without getting something back. So she tries to do all the stuff for other people, but then she keeps on feeling like you're doing something for other people, but actually you get gratitude out of doing it yourself.
Phoebe from Friends.
Phoebe from Friends. Sorry, just to clarify.
You stop him watching
What's her story? Yeah.
Anne and Roz. So Roz, as a trainer of other trainers and assessors, and Anne as a multi-award-winning practitioner, what do you think the qualities of an educator are? What do you think the most important qualities are?
You've got to practice what you preach, haven't you? I think you've got to walk the talk, all these cliches, but they're very true. You're role modelling what you believe in and what you're passionate about. So I think that, like you say just now, it's about learning things and always be willing to learn and open to new ideas. Because it's so easy, I think, especially I've seen a lot of staff maybe do this sometimes in colleges. Sometimes you can get a bit too stuck in your way, you can get a bit too familiar, a bit too comfortable, and you've got to kind of push yourself. I like pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Do a podcast, for example.
Yes.
Myself.
And us.
Yes.
Pushing us as well. But as a good point, I think that's really important. As educators, we have to stay up to date with the current trends in education, not just head down, well, this is the way I've always done it, so it works, let's just keep doing it. It's about changing and also inspiring others to want to do something different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm up with you. I mean, you're literally trying to learn everything, I think. And I mean, you're learning Welsh in your spare time, you're doing your doctorate, volunteering. So that's why we wanted to use you this week on this first episode, just to get across that. I mean, we are very thankful that you're in our team, but you know, the importance of lifelong learning to you as a person and as an educator. And hopefully that will inspire others. Yes.
It's changed my life. I think, like, for many people, it's definitely changed my life. And sometimes I think I came to it a bit later on in life, maybe with the education training. Like you were saying, well, I would never speak in front of classroom people. I wouldn't dream of it. I was always that person in the class in school who was quiet. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. I wouldn't speak unless, you know, someone forced me to say something in the room. Yeah. So
no, and I mean that when I said that. It's like, I remember thinking years and years and years ago, when I started at that large training provider, about when I started there and got the job, I was thinking, oh no, they're going to find out I'm a fraud because I cannot do a PGCE. I cannot do that. And I was set, I cannot do that because I won't be able to get up in front of people. And it was just practice. It was just being put in that situation, but also getting the support from everybody else at, you know, our colleagues, but also at the university. And yeah, never in a million years. So, and I used to use that with my adult learners, because I don't know if you remember, Rachel, I used to teach adults that were maybe not in work for sickness reasons, illness, confidence issues, mental health issues. Getting them back into work was so rewarding when you could see them grow and in confidence in front of you. So I would use my story with them to show them that anything is possible.
And we met somebody the other day who you trained 25 years ago. 20 years ago?
We did. And
she gave you a massive hug. So grateful for what you've done for her, isn't it?
Yeah, and she's now heading up a little sort of foundation to help others sort of in education and training as well.
Yeah.
So, well, you know, you've got all the awards, Anne. Got to have something.
I think that's another thing. Is it important that you do build those relationships as a practitioner? It is really important to build those relationships with your learners. One thing, people will do things for people they like. So that's, and they get on with.
I've always used that. If we can get our learners to like us, it sort of halves the work a little bit because they're on your side and they want to please you. I once, at my very first Eston inspection, I had to be observed with 3 of my adult learners around a computer. And back in those days, the computer screens were they weren't flat screen, they were big boxes, and we were all crowded around this screen. And basically, those 3 learners were amazing. I hadn't prepped them, but they were just hanging off my every word. And when I had feedback from the Eston inspector, they said, well, I think it's safe to say those learners would have jumped off a cliff if you trust them to. And it wasn't because I'd given them a 10. I hadn't, I promise. But it was just, and I loved that. I loved that was recognised, that we did have a really good relationship in terms of they trusted us.
Yeah.
And they trusted me to help them and to support them. And I think that's really important. I was actually saying in a session this morning to some learners that it doesn't matter what we teach you. The very first step is rapport and relationship. If you haven't got that, it makes everything else very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
What other qualities do you think then are important in an assessor, a trainer?
Well, I mean, the list is long.
It is.
If I'm honest. Communication is essential. That can be learnt. I learnt it.
Yeah.
I think we've all learnt to be better communicators as we've got a little bit older and a bit more experienced with the right support. I think there's certain things you can train people in, and how to communicate, how to ask the best questions that will get hopefully the best answers. We can teach them teaching methods, approaches, assessment methods and approaches. But if you haven't got that passion and that spark that you want to pass something on to others and support others, no matter who, it won't work, I think.
And I think working in post-16 education is sometimes challenging, and you need that passion to keep you going.
To get you through.
To overcome all the barriers that can come up
completely
day to day, absolutely. They can be barriers in organisation, they can be barriers in work, they can be barriers in learning, people's previous experiences, negative things that have happened in the past. There's a lot of things there, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of it as well is being authentic too. I think with the
Yeah.
relationships, being authentic and being genuine with people.
Yeah.
And I think people know when you are being that and you are
Yeah.
genuinely interested in them and then
Yeah.
do well
Yeah.
as well. And when we've all had teachers, haven't we, in the past who we know have really cared too much or
Completely. That could be another podcast.
Yeah. Anything else do you think? Going back to what I said about my university experience, I think that feedback is really important and how you deliver feedback.
Because going back to what you just said about having maybe not the best teachers, I had some awful feedback in my school years that was more personal rather than the work itself.
Mhm.
And it was to do with an art teacher. Yeah, she was very personal. She just didn't like me, I guess. Whereas then other art teachers would come in and praise the work, but she would sort of have a go at me. And I think that is something, I think that is why I wanted to get into education as well, because I wanted to sort of do it properly.
Yeah.
Because that particular person, I don't think should have been in education, because I don't think she was very fair to a lot of, not just me, to a lot of learners. I think, you've got to genuinely take an interest. If you haven't got anything constructive to say about the work and the effort that's been put in, then that's not good.
Yeah.
yeah, and give people motivation along the way. That's such an important thing. The number of times I've had kind of written work back from people in the past, educators, that's all negative. You just think,
And a nice big red pen.
Yeah.
Actually, on one of my assignments in my PGCE, going back to practice what you preach, but one of the lecturers there it wasn't any feedback. It was just references. I didn't reference, but no other feedback at all. So again, I use that as a what not to do. Feedback, definitely.
Well, I think particularly in work-based learning, you need to be flexible, because if you've got learners out in the workplace, particularly, if they're in health and social care, whatever, they're working shifts. So sometimes you'll have to be there at 5 a.m. or in the night, and you have to be able to adapt to that. And obviously with the safe working practices from your employer that you're out at those times. Yeah. But yeah, definitely being flexible to people's needs, because life happens, doesn't it? Yeah. And to all our learners, and you have to be adaptable and flexible to their needs, as well as learning needs. That's something different again. But yeah, definitely flexibility.
I think a big thing for me as well, because it's part of what we sort of pandered to do, we teach assessors, don't we?
Yeah.
And assessors come into assessment, from industry, usually. Yeah. So they've been what we call experts in their field.
Yeah.
And they know all about their subject area. So we've worked with amazing carers in the health and social care field, bricklayers, carpenters, hairdressers, mechanics, and they are experts in those fields. But then they come into assessment and they've got to learn all about how to teach, how to assess, how to give feedback. And they learn, I think, along the way, flexibility is really important. Yeah. It's not just how I was taught. Everybody's different.
And being brave as well. Yeah. Try out different things. I think you're right. People do teach the way they've been taught.
Yes.
Don't they?
Yes. But we all speak to people on the assessor courses that maybe they've been doing it for a couple of months. And I say, so how's it going? And they're like, it was. In a very high pitched voice like that. Yeah. Because they think, quite rightly, it's giving something back to their industry.
Yeah.
But it can be a challenging job.
Yeah.
A challenging role.
Yeah.
Dealing with people that maybe don't have the confidence that you had.
Yeah. What I always say to our trainee assessors, particularly those ones who've just come into it fresh, is your first 3 to 6 months are a whirlwind.
Yes.
And you just have to ride the storm. And then when you get to about 6 months-ish, maybe a little bit earlier, they finally think, yes, I'm getting this now. So if this is you and you're feeling overwhelmed by it, it does click, and it does click into place. I remember being there myself and just thinking, what have I done? But once you get it, once you've learnt your standards, once you get in your flow with your planning and your assessment and your feedback, it just clicks into place, and then it becomes a brilliant, rewarding job.
Yeah. And all of those things can be taught, but as long as you've got that passion and you do want to give something back, you want to pass on your skills, and I think we can work with that.
Absolutely. Well, it's been great for you both to have your insights into what makes a good educator. And like we said, at Panda, we provide training for trainers and assessors. So if anyone out there is interested in getting into this career and not sure where to start, please just get in touch with us and we're happy to give you some advice. So that's coming towards the end of our first episode. What we've got coming up on the next episode, we will be speaking to the lovely Lisa Mitten, who's the Strategic Director of the National Training Federation for Wales. And she's going to have a chat with us about how the landscape of post-16 education in Wales is changing, how this will affect staff on the ground, and how she thinks practitioners can make a difference to their lives.
So, if you have enjoyed today's episode, please like or subscribe on your preferred channel. Drop us a message on our socials, get in touch. Maybe you've got some topics that you'd like us to explore in the future, or maybe some people that you'd like to suggest to have as guests in our Learning Collab. Just let us know. But from all of us on the Learning Collab, thank you and goodbye.
Bye.